Hey everyone. So, may as well get this out of the way. Obviously, yes, compared to last week, the art and animation of this episode, while still great, wasn't as much of a feast for the eyes. But if we did get episodes like that all the time, it would definitely be overwhelming. So coming into this episode, that's a little more reserved, but still had things going on. It did feel like a welcome reprieve from last week. In fact, nowadays, whenever we do get an episode like last week, I do weirdly find myself appreciating episodes like this more, oddly enough, because it's just such a decompressor, so to speak. With that said, there is still a few things to talk about with this episode, and I guess the place to start is Big Mom versus Kid-in-Law, as well as Kaido versus Luffy, and how, well, even though not much progression was made in either fight, you can still see how they are setting up for what's to come as well, because in the backdrop of those fights and in the aftermath of King's defeat, one of the things to take note of is just how desperate CP0 is getting to take out the Straw Hats and all of their allies, to the point where they're saying that, even saying their hopes rely on the current monsters of the new world, Big Mom and Kaido, to take them out. It's their, like, that is kind of their CP0's own way of admitting, even admitting they pretty much don't even know what to do anymore in this situation. They're putting all their hopes on Kaido taking out the Straw Hats at this point, but as we see by the end of the episode, even that the possibility of that is even becoming slimmer as the fight drags on. And I love that exchange at the end where both Luffy and Kaido admit they're loving their fight, because in a lot of ways you could interpret that as even more bad news for CP0, because if they're truly getting to the point of enjoying their fight, then that means that CP0, in any last-ditch effort to kind of preserve this, is going to be forced to step in at some point. And just to kind of end the madness that they just want to prevent, I guess. And to hammer this point home even further, the episode gave a lot of spotlight to Usopp this week, and in a lot of ways, I think Usopp's contribution, while small in terms of this episode, truly shows how inept the world government is when it comes to dealing with the Straw Hats. Because each and every time they think if they just take out the big dogs, Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, like any of the major fighters, then the rest are just easy to pick off. But however small Usopp's, when you really look at this episode, however small Usopp's contribution was, it does show that you have to approach taking the Straw Hats out with almost a reverse approach. You have to focus on taking out the, I guess, technically weaker or supporting elements of the group first, because when the ships are down, it's characters like Nami, like Usopp, like Frank, like hell, even Frankie and Robin to an extent, that you can rely on when the situation turns ugly, or just when the other members of the crew need the tactical support. Like, when you think about it, Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, they've only been able to get to this point because of the support of the weaker members of the crew, so to speak. So, because everyone that came through is pretty, and when you take it that way, the crew is pretty much helpless without that support pillar. But because everyone they come across, the government especially, feels like they're because everyone they come across, especially the government, are absolutely clueless of this fact, I think we can all say they're going to fail each and every time to stop the Straw Hats. Like, I genuinely believe that. Like, even if there's growing concerns about the story nowadays, where people think at some point a lot of the members are going to die, it still doesn't change the fact that those pretty much support elements are still going to be there. There is still going to be support of some kind in some way. And as much as I talked up this portion just now, I do admit, on a technical level of the episode's pacing, it probably is the slowest part of the episode. Like, it's the part I did kind of, okay, can you wrap it up a bit? Like, it wasn't entirely that bad as I put it, but it is still not great either. It could have been better, I guess is ultimately what I'm saying. With that said, there is one other thing of note in this episode, which is that the fact that Zoro is pretty much just barely alive. Like, you basically see him. The man is basically struggling to, like, even get up on his own 2 feet and to sit up straight, showing, yeah, he pushed his body beyond the limitations of what he's used to, and it has, from what we see, cost him. Now, obviously, he's not going to die, but this is a sign that this is the closest he's come to death so far, and that is going to make what happens next with him very interesting, because what happens to him next is something I honestly, what happens to Zoro next is something that I'm a little bit mixed on now, because on one hand, I'm a little miffed that we haven't, that nothing really happened with that. But I almost wonder if something did. It just happened off screen. But I'll get to it when we get to it, kind of thing. And yeah, it goes without saying, but Hiyori's got Orochi ensnared. He's all but dead at this point. It's just a matter of waiting for the flames to consume him. And yes, I do really love the poetic irony that being consumed by flames is how Toki died, and now years later, her daughter Hiyori is basically resolved to do the same, but this time take her parents' murderer, Orochi, with her. And obviously anyone who's read the manga knows how this is going to play out, but even so, seeing Orochi give in so willingly to his own temptation and unintentionally his own demise is just weirdly just so satisfying to watch. Like, I think it might be just the voice actor they got to play Orochi, but just seeing that man just willingly give in to his own hubris, his own avarice, his own lust, I guess, in the case of Hiyori, just see him give in to his emotions so easily and forget that, yeah, he's gonna probably die, is like, yeah, it's probably the most satisfying death of a character like Orochi I've seen in a while. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. From on Twitter, Analyst Crunchyroll. Be sure to notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight of Anime signing off. Later, everyone.